What if I told you that a bird, found nowhere else on Earth, sang its last song just 25 years ago and almost nobody noticed? Picture a shallow, reed-fringed lake in Madagascar. The water is still, the air thick with the calls of hidden creatures. And there, gliding silently between the stalks, is a small, dusky bird with a distinctive chirp. This is the Alaotra Grebe, a species so specialized it couldn't live anywhere else. And by 2010, it was gone. Forever. This isn't just the story of another extinction. It's the story of how good intentions, tangled with unseen consequences, can quietly erase a living thing from the planet. Let's rewind to the beginning, to the lake, the bird, and the choices that sealed its fate. The Alaotra Grebe was a master of its tiny universe. It couldn't fly well. Its wings were small, suited for darting through dense marsh vegetation, not crossing open skies. It fed on small fish in the murky waters, nested on floating mats of reeds, and evolved for thousands of years in isolation. For a long time, that isolation protected it, but then the world began to change around it. The lake it called home, Lake Alaotra, was the largest in Madagascar. And to the people living nearby, it was a source of life. Water for rice fields, fish for food, reeds for weaving. For generations, a balance existed. But in the mid-20th century, that balance began to tilt. The first major shift came from an unexpected place: well-meaning conservation and development projects. To boost local fisheries, non-native fish species were introduced into the lake. They were bigger, faster-growing, a potential solution to food shortages. But these new fish competed with the native species the grebe relied on. Slowly, the grebe's food supply began to shrink. Then came another, even more subtle threat. To control mosquitoes and improve public health, fish nets with smaller mesh were encouraged. But these nets didn't just catch fish. They accidentally trapped and drowned the grebes, which would dive and become entangled. A species that had survived millennia of natural change was now facing death by 1,000 cuts, none of them deliberate, but each one adding up. But the final, most devastating blow came from something that seemed completely unrelated: the introduction of a plant. To stabilize the lake's edges and reduce erosion, a non-native reed called the water hyacinth was brought in. It spread rapidly, forming thick floating mats that looked at first like new habitat. But the grebe couldn't nest in it. The hyacinth mats were too unstable. Worse, they choked out the native reeds the bird depended on for shelter and breeding. The grebe's world was being remade, plant by plant, into a place it could no longer survive. By the 1980s, the situation was critical. The grebe's population had plummeted. Scientists who visited the lake noted how few birds remained. But there was a deeper, more insidious problem: hybridization. Another bird, the little grebe, a more common and widespread species, began moving into the Alaotra grebe's territory. As the Alaotra grebe's numbers fell, it began interbreeding with the newcomer. At first, this might have seemed like a lifeline, a way for the species to persist through mixed offspring. But in reality, it was a genetic swan song. The unique traits of the Alaotra grebe, the specific beak shape, the distinct vocalizations, the behaviors honed over millennia, were being diluted, generation by generation, until the pure original bird was gone. The last confirmed sighting of a pure Alaotra grebe was in 1985. For years afterward, there were scattered reports, a hopeful glimpse, a familiar call. But by 2010, after extensive surveys found nothing, the International Union for Conservation of Nature officially declared the species extinct. It was the first bird extinction of the 21st century. And what's especially haunting is that it wasn't caused by malice or even direct persecution. It was a slow, quiet unraveling, a cascade of small, disconnected decisions that collectively closed in on one fragile species. The story of the Alaotra Grebe is a lesson in invisible connections. It shows us that saving a species isn't just about protecting it from obvious dangers like hunting or deforestation. It's about understanding the whole system, the plants, the animals, the people, the economy, and anticipating how a change in one part can ripple through all the others. Today, Lake Alaotra is still there. People still fish, still farm, still live alongside its waters. But the Alaotra Grebe is gone. Its absence is a quiet reminder, a void in the soundscape, a missing piece of the world that will never return. Yet in that loss, there's also a warning, one that asks us to look closer, to think deeper, before we introduce something new into a fragile ecosystem. Because sometimes extinction doesn't come with a bang, it comes with a whisper. Which other lost species do you think we should remember and learn from? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to Rare Species for more stories from the edge of existence.